So what does this guitar pedal have to do with my engine bay? Well, I have an explanation. It's a little long-winded, so bear with me. Or feel free to bounce ahead if you just want to get to the project. Okay, so there's a number of different ways that you can do engine bay dress up, and two popular options are the Goldenwrench Supply BLACKLINE caps and the Downstar Dress Up bolts. So first, the caps. So at the time that I was originally looking at these, they only came in a silver and red color, neither of which I was interested in for the engine bay. However, IND, where you can get these caps, has a custom painted option, but the problem was I didn't really have any sort of definitive color suggestion. So I think that like my default would have been just to go with the body color match, but I kind of wanted to do like an accent color, so like a green or orange, yellow maybe, you know. But in the absence of any sort of definite decision, I sort of held off on the idea, but I like the overall idea of doing a custom painted caps project. So fast forward a few months and I'm on their website again. I happen to notice that now they offer some of the caps in a motorsport blue option. And I say some because the full line is the fuel, washer fluid, coolant, charge cooler, and oil caps. And it seems that they only had the motorsport blue option in the oil, charge cooler, and coolant. And they were really cool looking caps too. It's like a darker blue. It has like the white detail logo and lettering. But again, I really wanted like the entire set of them. And it's worth noting though, as of right now, you can get the full set in motorsport blue. I don't think they had them all at the time. If they did, maybe I missed the other two. But in any case, I wanted the full set. So again, shelve the idea. So fast forward a few more months, I'm in my office doing like whatever office stuff, and I glance over at my pedal shelf. Now, I've been playing guitar for 30 years, and I love guitar effects, and my favorite all-time effect is flange. Flange is like this sort of jet plane, sort of whooshing sound. Actually, fun fact, it was developed by Les Paul in the 50s and then popularized by the Beatles with their Revolver album in the 60s. In any case, there's this company called Boss that makes a huge array of guitar effects and a huge array of colors, and they always use this purple for their flange pedal. So I glance over, I see this, and it's like, that's it, purple. That's the color I want to go with. That's the perfect accent color. I love that whole blue-purple aesthetic. So I grab the pedal, put it in the engine bay, and it looks cool, but like I'm not sure it's the right shade of purple. So I kind of hold off, but at least now I have a direction, right? Purple. So it was really actually later that night or maybe the next night, I'm on Instagram and I scroll by a post by Matt Morman from Obsessed Garage, who at the time was getting ready to order his G80 M3 Yahari edition, and he was looking for some color suggestions. And of course, one of the options, Techno Violet Purple. So if you saw the 2-year review, as I mentioned in there, to me the most iconic looking M3 is an E36 in Techno Violet Purple. I love that color, right? So I hop online and I find this company, Spectral Paints, that makes spray paint cans in a huge array of colors, and one of them, Techno Violet Purple, paint code 299. So you can get individual, color base coats, or you can get like a kit with the primer and the clear coat. So I get that. There we go. Decision made. Techno Violet Purple. So then now for the Downstar bolts. So for those, the collars come in a pretty good array of colors, and they do have a purple option. The only problem is that their purple is like sort of a lighter, sort of like a candy purple, and I'm not sure it would go with Techno Violet. So I figured, why not just get them in the aluminum sort of polished look and just spray paint everything. So that is how a glance over at the pedal shelf and this pedal sort of helped determine the course of the color for the engine bay dress up plan. And that was a lot, so if you're still with me, appreciate you. Okay, so before we get started, let's talk about the spray paint real quick. So this stuff is an acrylic urethane-based spray paint, and one of my questions was, can it handle the temperature of an engine bay? Is it rated for higher heat? Usually anytime you see anybody doing an engine bay based spray painting project, they recommend that you get a high temperature tolerant spray paint. The problem is that none of the options on the market for high temperature spray paint come in Techno Violet Purple. So would this stuff be safe to use? So I looked all around, I couldn't find what the actual tolerance of this stuff was relative to the ambient engine bay temperature. So especially when you take into consideration things like long drives and if it's really hot outside and stuff like that. Until I came across on Amazon, where I got this stuff, somebody asked the question for this particular product, is it safe to use on calipers? And the seller themselves, Spectral Paints, came in and said that not only could you use it on calipers, but you could use it on the engine block. So with that, I feel reasonably confident that we can do this on the caps that are going in the engine bay, and if all goes wrong, at least I have that proof. So But the one thing is the clear coat. So this stuff is not from Spectral Paints. This is Spray Max, 1K clear coat, and I couldn't find the numbers on that. So out of an abundance of caution and to play it safe, I'm using this VHT Engine Enamel Gloss Clear Coat. This stuff is rated for 550 degrees, so I think that in combination with the Spectral Paints, which they say is safe to use, even on an engine block, we should be good to go. Now, with all that being said, time for the disclaimer. So I'm not a spray painting professional. I'm not even a spray painting amateur. This is gonna be my first real attempt at a spray painting project with the goal of like some kind of professional looking results. So definitely don't look at this as a tutorial. This is more like a ride along for this engine bay project and to see how everything goes. And most of the spray painting tips and techniques and things like that I researched prior to even filming this, really. But I thought I would at least share some of the more common spray painting techniques for if you're doing a project like this, although again, I'd highly recommend that you do your own research, and there's a lot of great tutorials out there that you can check out for best spray painting practices. But of some of the things that I learned for best practices, your spray painting environment should be between 50 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit with a relative humidity of under 85%. You want to go like a sort of even sweeping motion across whatever it is that you're painting. So a nice sort of even steady pace, not too fast, not too slow. Overlap the last pass with the next pass a little bit, and start and stop before and after. So don't start your spray stream right on the object itself. Usually, actually, whatever spray paint you're using, the can actually has a lot of sort of best techniques to get the best results based on whatever kind of spray paint it is. So definitely look on the can for that. And then finally, the last tip I actually got from Chris Fix, which was to use a upside down Rubbermaid container to cover the object being painted. So in his case, he was painting something outside and used an upside down Rubbermaid to just make sure that no outside contaminants or debris got on the paint in between passes. In my case, I'm doing this in the garage, but we have a lot of animals. It's kind of dusty in here. So I'm gonna use a clear Rubbermaid container to cover everything in between coats. Okay, so now the game plan. So doing this out in the garage, got the space heaters going. I think I can get it to about 60 to 65 degrees out here. So I'm gonna actually set up sort of like a mock spray painting booth in the garage. I got a bunch of painter's plastic. I'm not too concerned about the base coat or anything, but primer does tend to get everywhere. So just to make sure that everything is well contained, set up a bunch of plastic. So then I'm gonna prep the surface by using a 600 grit sandpaper on the caps and collars. And if you were doing something where you needed to remove old paints and solvents, you'd probably wanna use something a little bit more coarse, but because this stuff is brand new and I just wanna scuff up the surface enough to make sure that the primer and paints and everything adhere to it, then 600 should be sufficient. After that, I'm gonna clean it up with some isopropyl rubbing alcohol, just to make sure that any kind of oils or anything are cleaned up. And then we'll do 2 primer coats, 2 base coats, and 2 to 3 base coats, depending on how that goes. And then probably 2 clear coats. And then we'll let it dry for about 48 hours. I don't know that you need a full 2 days for that, but just to make sure that everything is sufficiently dry, and then we'll do a test fitting in the engine bay. Okay, so I'm testing my layout here. I still have to sand everything and clean up before I start actually doing the painting, but because these are really just covers for the existing caps, I wanted to make sure that I got all the way down to the edge and maybe like right on the edge here. So I'm using these plastic shot cups to sort of prop them up in the air so that I can kind of spray paint right at an even level and make sure that it gets good coverage. And then finally, for the washer cap. So this one has a rubber gasket, so just if you have these and you're doing this, be sure to take this off before you spray paint. So initial impressions. 1, the color. I think it actually looks really good, though I'm not 100% sure it's gonna work out in the engine bay. This actually came out a little bit darker than I thought, and I'm not 100% sure that it's not going to get lost in the black plastic and carbon fiber. So I think I thought it was going to be just a little bit brighter of like a little lighter of a color purple. So I'll have to wait until this is all dry and done and actually in the engine bay in sunlight to see whether or not it's the right color. However, that being said, I gotta say, the color itself, regardless of whether or not it works in the car, I think it's fantastic. I don't know if that'll come through real well on camera, but since this is Techno Violet Metallic, it actually does have that sort of metallic, sort of flaking look, and it looks fantastic. So I'm really happy with the quality of the paint. All right, so issues and mistakes. So I don't know if you can really tell this, but as I was admiring the work before I started filming, I happened to notice right on the edge of two of the caps, there is some paint overrun here. Now, I don't know if that's from the base coat or the clear coat, and if it was due to just spraying too thick, or if it was maybe because the caps were in too close to proximity and it just was being runny at the angle they were getting sprayed. I don't really know, but huge bummer. Now, the way to fix this would be to get a fine grit sandpaper, sand it up, redo the base coat, and then do the clear coat, but I'm out of paint. So I had to order more paint. So the can will be here in somewhere between, I don't know, 6 to 10 days, and then we can fix this then. But in the meantime, once this does dry, I can at least go out and kind of do a sort of a test fitting to see whether or not this color will actually work in the engine bay. So we will revisit this in a few days. So see you guys then. Okay, so it has been a couple of days. Everything is dry. How did it turn out? So overall, I'm very happy with the quality of the paint. So as I mentioned in the previous section, I think that the metallic look of the paint, which by the way was kind of surprising because I didn't realize it was going to do that, came out really well. It's not like a really obnoxious sort of glittery sort of look. It's a very subtle, flecks or specks or whatever that give it that metallic look. And you have to get it in the right light to kind of notice it, but it's definitely there. It looks great. I think the color, the representation of Techno Violet Purple was really good. And I'm really happy with the clear coat as well, because it's not overly shiny or too glossy. I think it will blend well with the shine of the carbon fiber pieces in the engine bay. I'm also pretty happy with how the collars came out. So no issues here. And the only thing is, like, at the very bottom of the collar, you can see a little bit where the paint coverage wasn't complete, but there'll be bolts in there and you won't be able to tell. So really happy with all that. But now the mistakes. So as I mentioned before, I had some paint drips on the side. I thought it was just 3 caps, but it turns out it was all 5. So where did I go wrong? So I went back and looked at the footage of the spray painting and came up with 3 things that I think I did wrong. So number 1, distance. I think I was too preoccupied with pace that I neglected distance and was probably too close to everything as I was painting it. 2 is, and this is the biggest one, is as I was trying to get even coverage on all sides, I noticed that particularly on this side, that as I was spray painting just the area that needed coverage, I would then continue to go over the entire cap again after it was already sufficiently painted. So definitely overkill on the tops in particular. And the third one is that I should have looked at the paint prior to doing the clear coat to see if there were any issues. So from what I've read, conventional spray paint wisdom is if you make a mistake, wait for everything to dry, which is the hardest part, and then make whatever corrections that you need to before continuing. I could, if I had noticed, if I'd stopped and looked and hadn't noticed the drips, I could wait for them to dry, sand those out, reapply a little bit of the base coat, and then hit the clear coat. Now, it's not that big of a deal to correct them now with the clear coat already applied, though I could have saved myself a little bit of time and clear coat. And actually, I already tried it out with this cap. So I took some 1500 grit sandpaper and started sanding out. I was kind of hoping maybe it was in the clear coat, in which case maybe I could have just wet sanded this and then polished and buffed and not have to apply a base coat again, but it was in the base coat. So I already started sanding this, and it was actually pretty easy to get everything out, except the only problem is that some of these caps have these little grooves in between, and that it's not impossible, it just makes it a little extra difficult. But all these are already gone. It didn't take that long in order to get this done, so it'd be easy enough to fix the rest of these. I have some more paint so I can reapply the base, redo the clear, and we should be good to go. Now, however, before I do any of that, I probably should do a test fitting first, because the more I look at this, the more I'm starting to be a little concerned that this might be too dark of a color purple.
So I'm gonna take this outside because the only way I can get a true representation of what this looks like is in natural light in the actual engine bay, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because currently it's like 32 degrees outside, feels like 27, it's windy, and it's gonna suck. So, but nonetheless, gotta get it done. So let's take this stuff outside, do a test fitting, see how it looks.
All right, guys, well, I was gonna film like a whole segment out here with reactions and opinions and all that, but it's cold, it's windy, it sucks, I hate winter. I can't wait to be in Florida next month for Beamer Invasion. I wish I lived in Florida. Let's go back in the garage. Well, I think the results are in, and this is definitely one of those things that I think it sounded good in theory, but I'm not sure that it quite landed the way that I'd envisioned. So, looked at this for quite a while, even outside in the cold, and I think that maybe this color, this particular shade of purple, I think is just, it's a little too dark, which kind of sucks because when you see it out in the daylight, it's a beautiful color. It's really, it doesn't seem that dark, but then when you see it in the context of the engine bay and all the, again, black plastic and carbon fiber, it's just, it's a little bit dark. And even seeing like all the cardboard here that was spray painted on, that I was using as a base for doing this, I was starting to think like, it could be too dark. So what are my options at this point? Well, one option would be to strip all the paint off and go with a different color, which is feasible, which I might do because, you know, all the caps and the bolts together, I mean, they're kind of pricey, so it might be worth doing that. The second option is that now that I've seen that I can get all 5 caps, all the BLACKLINE caps in Motorsport Blue, might do that and then just order the blue collars from Downstar because I think those would be a good, they're not gonna be a match, but I think they would be a good offset accent to the BLACKLINE caps. And if I do that, then perhaps I will continue with fixing the issues with this and attempt to sell these caps, you know, so maybe put them on Instagram or whatever. And if you're, you know, when you see this, I don't know, hit me up if you might be interested because they'll probably be available if I don't repaint them in another color and I would sell them for what I paid for them. So those are feasible options. And I debated on whether or not to make this video or put this particular video out because it didn't go well, but I think that was kind of an important aspect of this is that, you know, sometimes you have an idea for your car and it doesn't work out. And it's not like an Instagram picture where everything is framed to be like perfect and, you know, whatever. Sometimes the idea just doesn't land. So in that context, I think it was still worth putting this out, but there will definitely be a part 2. So whatever I end up doing for the engine bay, I will make a part 2 to this, and I kind of hope to get it done before Beamer Invasion because I would love to have the engine bay all ready by then, but I'm not gonna rush it. I'll make sure I make the right decision and we'll figure it out then. However, if I do stick with the purple theme, I have some alternatives. So here's some half and half. I think the color of this is kind of cool. It's a bit lighter. Got this Down East Blackberry Cider, which has all kinds of different shades of purple in it. That's kind of cool. Well, I mean, this is way dark and that's pretty much on par with, I don't know, that's kind of on par with the Techno Violet, but the bottom here, that's pretty cool. So that's an idea. And then of course I have the original inspiration, the flange pedal. Now I still think that this is kind of the wrong shade. I don't know what it is about this shade of purple that I don't think is quite right. But actually when I was filming the intro or whatever it was where I had this in the engine bay, I like sat it down for a second and I was like, you know what? I don't know, maybe it would work. So I don't know, we'll see. But so it's either going to be purple, which I would still love to make purple happen because again, I think purple and blue is a fantastic color combination, or it's going to be the Motorsport Blue. So either way, I will make a follow-up video to this. And in the meantime, if you found this video entertaining, informative, or both, maybe got something out of this, feel free to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because again, there will be a part 2 and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.